It's clicking. Hello, everyone. Good evening to you all. For those joining us on Zoom and YouTube Live, welcome to our first self-sabotage webinar. My name is Celine, and I'm honored to be your host and moderator for today's session. We are thrilled to have you here as we explore the theme that often hides in plain sight. We promise you will leave today inspired to break the patterns and make a shift. A few things to be noted. Please keep your microphone muted unless invited to speak. And if interested to chime in the conversation, raise your hand or use the chat box for questions and comments. Yes. Before we begin, I would like to invite our publishing director, Mr. Doso, uh, the publishing director in charge of Zion Pal Publishing, the force behind bringing the stories to life, to talk about self sabotage and why specifically self sabotage. Before we continue, thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Doso.
Well, thank you so very much, Celine. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can be able to hear my voice. Please confirm for me that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. I may not come live on video because my camera is having a little trouble here, but if you can hear me, that is quite encouraging. As has been said, my name is Doso Radido. I am the Operations Director and founder at Zion Publishers. And I am so privileged that for the first time, we get an opportunity to engage in a conversation about self-sabotage and explore the dynamics around that and hopefully begin to provide useful insights and solutions, especially learning from the people who have navigated that space or are thought leaders in that space and can authoritatively speak about this as a way of enriching our lives and helping us to better our practice, whether we are career people, entrepreneurs, or leaders in the different spaces we work in, or just individuals who are keen on producing better than we have done so far. So I'll just give a brief about Zion Publishers, and then I'll also make a remark about why we are concerned about, this whole issue of self-sabotage. So Zion Publishers is a publishing company that is based here in Nairobi. We have close to a decade of experience in the marketplace. Our focus largely has been on the corporate frontline, working on projects that are aimed at intervening or addressing certain gaps that we see in the marketplace. We have a huge interest in what's happening on the leadership front because we believe that leadership plays a critical role in almost every aspect of life. And it is one of those things that directly affects the quality of life. John Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership, and I so much agree with him. And in alignment with that, we pay a very, very close attention to what's happening on the leadership front. We have done a couple of projects that are aimed at enriching conversations on that front or speaking to specific issues that we think are important that need from the daily practice of leadership and use that to inform the conversation around leadership and to propose and suggest certain changes or certain interventions that we think are important in terms of enhancing the practice of leadership, the understanding of leadership, or even the philosophy of leadership. In line with that, we have a huge interest on women's leadership. And this is because we want to contribute in a strategic way to the ongoing conversation around the involvement of women in leadership in what has come to be called gender inclusion or inclusive leadership, etc. Personally, I like calling it the involvement of women because, in my opinion, they are more than just a gender item. So when they show up with creativity, they show up with resourcefulness, they show up with ideas and innovations, they show up with uniqueness in style, perspective, and approach to things, which in totality constitutes a very, very useful, contribution to the dynamics of leadership. We have um, projects that are specifically tailor-made for women and women leaders because we wanted to shine a spotlight on them or to highlight certain issues based on the lessons that are coming from the involvement in leadership, the things that are working and the things that are not working. So self-sabotage is one of those projects. And as the name of the project suggests, we are interested in exploring the things that women do that hinder them from being the very best of who they are supposed to be, or from serving the world with the very thing that they were, resourced to deliver to the world. And we wanted to pick this from the people who have had that kind of an experience speaking to us. Since we began doing these projects, I've had an opportunity of listening to or speaking to women, so many women leaders, and that has given me an advantage to see how things look like in the world of women. And I've come to conclude that much as we live in the same world, men and women, we don't experience it the same way. And therefore, for us to be able to uh, understand and know how to tap into the women's resource, we have to get down and begin to see things through the lenses of women, to understand what concerns them and to get to know what they know, and to be able to appreciate what they're capable of doing and how they're doing it. Importantly, we need to understand the challenges that they face and the issues that really concern them, some of which may not be issues when they are brought to men or through the perspectives of men, but because they are concerns and issues to the women, we have to listen to that because that affects the dynamics of their performance, their deployment, and anything that we are trying to get them to do, either in the workplace, in the society, or in our family, etc. So self-sabotage seeks to explore those issues and how they affect the performance of women, or how they affect the delivery of the results or impact that they're trying to create. And being that this is the first project of its kind, I am very, very keen to see how the impact is going to look like, because based on the experiences that we've had with the different projects we've done previously, very, very useful lessons and signals come out of this and are being used by an increasing number of people who are finding relevance in, stories that are locally curated and that are speaking to the dynamics of our local environment and, what's happening within our jurisdiction, which is a very powerful thing to see. So today we get an opportunity to hear from the voices of 3 of the women that are featured in this project. The project has a total of 11, but 3 will be in the panel today. And I know a couple of others may be joining this conversation, but from the audience side. But in totality, we have a total of 11 voices in the book. And that gives us an opportunity to hear from very many different backgrounds and very many different experiences as a way of just strengthening that voice and, trying to exhaust from the many of them as possible about how the situation looks like, especially when it comes to self-sabotage. So if you're joining us today, I just want to welcome you and challenge you to be ready to learn, and also encourage you to be ready to be part of this conversation, so that if there's something that that should enrich the conversation we're having today, when the right time comes and you're given an opportunity to contribute, feel free to do that. And also feel free to pick lessons and use them either in your life or in your leadership to be able to, help the people that fall under your sphere of influence. Otherwise, I'm very, very happy and I'm glad. So as I finish, I want to hand the meeting back to Celine, who is going to be our moderator today for further guidance. Thank you so very much and enjoy yourself in the session.
Um, Thank you so much, Mr. Dozo, for that. As he has said, self sabotage is something that affects us internally, but the effects ripples out. It affects not only governance, community, family settings. It makes leaders in the high areas shrink from making bold necessary decisions, or institutions undermining their own credibility. Also, in communities, it can be a collective hesitation to embrace change, like we've all seen in some communities, or to believe in a shared potential. In families, it can appear as cycles of doubt, fear, or unfulfilled dreams that pass on from one generation to the next. This is something that should be taken seriously, because when we break free from these patterns personally, we create a ripple effect. We show up differently in our workplace, in our relationships, and in society at large. We model courage, clarity, and resilience, and that transforms not just us, but the spaces we inhabit and walk into and interact. So, as we begin, to the audience, I'd love for you to reflect: where have you noticed self sabotage at play? Whether in your own journey as a person, in your family, in your workplace, or even in the communities you're part of. Um, you should engage with me on this in the chat box. The question is: where have you noticed self sabotage at play, whether in your own journey, in your family, in the workplace, or even in the communities that you are part of? Thank you very much. And let's get to meet our lovely panelists. Today we are joined by Sylvia, Michelle, and Victoria. I'd like to welcome the authors, the ladies, to introduce themselves. Ladies, please tell us your name, what you do, a fun fact of you, if you may, and give us a brief glimpse into your chapter. Thank you so much. We will start in the order I mentioned the name, Sylvia, then we'll have Michelle, and then Victoria. Thank you. Welcome, ladies.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Sylvia Korir. I am a career coach, a podcaster, and recently an author. Yes, I have. I am part of the authors that have written, or rather contributed, in the book Self Sabotage. What do? I coach people in mid careers. That is, those people who are beyond 7 years and up to 13 years of their corporate life experience. Those are the people that I coach. And however, I'm not shy to coach those who are not yet falling in that category that I have said. All right. So, what's the fun fact about me is that I love to sing. I sing and I love learning new songs every week. So, I am learning specifically hymns. So, I learn hymns every week because I love to sing. I think that's about it. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. We'll have Michelle next.
Thanks, Celine, and hi, everyone. So my name is Michelle Kagari. I am someone who's deeply motivated to give back and grow people and make a change and leave this world better than I found it. I think that's my why, and that influences everything I do. Currently, I work in a social enterprise, an agriculture social enterprise called One Acre Fund. I lead department that covers all our government relations and policy work. The department covers 10 markets. It has over 90 staff. And in tandem, just like Sylvia, I'm also an executive coach. So I lead our enterprise-wide executive coaching program at the organization. I lead talent management at the executive level. I'm also really big into mentoring. So outside of my day job, I've become really big into mentoring, especially supporting women to grow so that we can just change the table. Fun fact about me, I enjoy the outdoors. And actually, when I was much younger, I was quite an intrepid hiker. I did Mount Kenya several times, Kilimanjaro at a time when you would not find any African on those mountains. It was just white people and a few Indians. And it's something that now that my daughter is much older, I've been excited to get back into. I think, Selena, are we talking about our chapter or we'll get into that later?
You are supposed to share a glimpse into your chapter.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So in the book, my chapter is actually the last chapter, and I share a part of my journey, which was the most difficult period in my career so far, where sometimes I wonder whether I crashed and burned or what it was that was happening. But either way, it was a crucible moment, a very difficult period where I made a lot of missteps. I had a lot of blind spots. And what I learned from that and where and how that has reshaped me. And obviously, when I was going through that period, it was not fun. It was a very, very challenging time. But now, looking back, it's almost 10 years later. Looking back, I wouldn't be the leader that I am and the person that I am today if I hadn't gone through that experience. So it was actually fundamental and critical to shaping my leadership journey. So I talk about that experience, what those blind spots were, what I learned from that, because in my leadership and in my coaching, I see so many very powerful, high-performing women falling into the same traps that I did over and over again. And so I share this so that if we can avoid them or identify them before it's too late so that we can take corrective action, that you don't need to crash and burn just as badly as I did.
Thank you so much, Michelle. We are so happy and glad that you're committed to breaking the cycle that you once went through, and we cannot wait. We'll have Victoria do her introduction then.
Victoria, you're on silent.
Thank you so much, Celine. I got so excited. I started talking before I unmuted. I was just so intrigued by what Michelle just shared, and it's so similar to actually what I want to share. But I was just saying thank you so much for inviting us into this panel, Celine, Mr. Dosso, and trusting us with this mission of amplifying our voices so that other women can be heard and can hear our voices and probably learn a few things from maybe the journeys that we have taken, the missteps, as Michelle said. So to our guest today, my name is Victoria Thiga. Professionally, I work in leadership and development, personal transformation. I support individuals and organizations to unlock their potential through coaching, through mentorship, through strategy, and just helping people to transform their mindsets, which is a journey that I've also had to walk. Outside of my professional ventures, I will say I am a mother of two. teenage children from whom I draw my strength every day. I think they challenge me to do better. And the why for this book is at some point in 2023, I went into a bookstore with my daughter, and I thought she would pick like a children's book, but she actually went to the the section where there are these books by powerful women, Michelle Obama. I think the one she picks was by Rosa Parks. It's a series, and I was very intrigued because by then I think she was 10 years old, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, okay, if she's reading stories from out there, who will tell my story? Are there other young women like her coming up that I could inspire with my story as well? So I may not be as great as they are, but I know I'm on the path to that greatness. So I think when I was approached to participate in this project, I felt that this was very timely. It was almost like the writing on the wall for Daniel. So I felt really challenged by that, and I felt it's important for me to have these conversations about the norms, the spaces that have been created for women and the challenges that we face, and just have authentic conversations, because it's not always pretty, as Michelle and Sylvia mentioned. It's not always pretty. Like when you're going through these challenges, you're not smiling. In fact, you are just asking, why me? But when you walk through it, you realize a fact that I keep repeating to people, that life is lived forwards, but it is best understood backwards. So what that means is once you through it and you look back, you realize why you had to go through that season in your life. And just like maybe many of my co-authors, I've walked that journey at a personal level, at a professional level, in the social space, where I've gone through stuff that I wouldn't ordinarily discuss and put out there. But here I am. So good challenge, and I'm up to even doing a volume 2 of the book, because I'm so excited that I actually made it here this far. So a fun fact about me, unlike Michelle, who does a lot of hiking, I'm not a procrastinator. Like, I jump right onto challenges, and procrastination is one of the self-sabotaging habits that we have as women. So that is one that I do not have. But there's this time I actually decided, on a whim, my family was taking a hike to Mount Longonot, and I decided, yeah, I'll go. So I went, and I realized that on the flip side, it's very important to prepare, because I couldn't walk like for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk properly because I wasn't ready. And I think those are some of the things that I bring up in chapter 4, which I have authored, that, preparedness, you cannot manifest your life. You cannot manifest anything and just say, I manifest that job, I manifest that leadership position. I think that's a word that I sit heavy with most of the times, because, you want to practice faith, but you have to be prepared. So I think for me, that's a fun fact, that I don't procrastinate. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes it does a number on me, but I'm happy to share that, because it has also taught me that if I do not want to procrastinate, then I always have to be ready for the opportunities and, the things that I want to see happening in my life. I need to get ready and prepare for them. So in chapter 4, I talk about preparedness, and I say that, wishing is just a dream. You have to plan. You don't just bump into big positions. You do not just bump into a position where you are leading a global team of over 90 people. You have to strategize and prepare for that. So I've shared a couple of tips on how, the self-sabotaging habits that I have had to overcome and address in my life, and just sharing these stories with other women. I hope that they will maybe take a different path and maybe perhaps it will be easier or it will help us to just get out of the rant. So in a nutshell, that is Victoria, the author of Self-Sabotage, Chapter 4. Looking forward to the interactions.
Thank you so much, Victoria, Michelle, and Sylvia, for that lovely introduction. And for everyone else that is joining us, we are at the Self-Sabotage First official webinar, and we are here to tackle the theme of self-sabotage. And we can't wait for the beautiful conversation that you're about to dive in. And if you're here and you're taking part of this, even on YouTube Live, we had posed a question earlier. I asked, where have you noticed self-sabotage at play, whether in your own journey, personally, in your family, in the workplace, or even in communities that you're part of? And I see that Rukia Kitano says, self-sabotage mostly in the workplace when dealing with office politics. Yes. Thank you so much, Rukia. And we know every part of an organization has politics, so we have to navigate that. And if anyone else is open to putting down their comments and answering the question, you're free, just as Rukia has done. And feel free to also share what you expect and also what you are learning as we continue with the conversation we're going to have. Thank you so much, everyone. So, ladies, I see that you all have stated how you have experienced self sabotage, how they affected your decisions, and which goes hand in hand with what everyone else says. We experience self sabotage different ways. Victoria has said she does not procrastinate, and maybe I, as Celine, procrastinate, and probably I am not aware that this is self sabotage. So, in your own words, we'll start with Michelle. How would you describe self sabotage?
Thanks, Celine. Yeah, this was a concept that I thought about quite deeply when I was writing my chapter. And where I landed was that it's those behaviors that we have. And the key, what really makes the distinction between like a poor behavior and that self-sabotage is the awareness. I think for me, that's the distinction, that you're not even aware of how you're showing up. You're not aware of those behaviors and how they are being perceived by others and the impact it has on you. Um, and certainly when I look at my own journey, and where it was actually now I sabotaged my own career, because that implies that it happened, it was because of that lack of awareness. I had no understanding of what was going on around me. I had no understanding of what I was doing that was actually setting myself up, exposing myself, keeping myself small. Because once I started developing that awareness and recognizing some of those behaviors, of which, yes, some of those behaviors, it's conditioning. Society conditions us as women, the expectations in the workplace. But once I became aware of them, it didn't mean that I had now miraculously resolved my behaviors, but it was easier to catch myself and then begin to work at course correcting so that the behavior doesn't escalate to the point where I've sabotaged myself.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I'm glad that you spoke about awareness, which is something that many people, I think it's a huge step in solving problems. You have to be aware to tackle whatever problem or self sabotaging patterns you're having. And this question in what is self sabotage to you? I will also pose the same question to Victoria and Sylvia. How would you describe self sabotage? We'll start with Victoria, then Sylvia.
All right. So I think for me, Michelle has put it very well. And in fact, the first tip that I share, or the first idea of, when I became aware that I am self-sabotaging is when I realized that these are unconscious behaviors. You know, it's not things that I have, I'll go out and purposely do. It's just things that I've been stuck so comfortable doing over a long period of time. When I get upset, I don't voice out what exactly is bothering me. So I think, just as Michelle has put it, in fact, that's one of the things that I've covered, that you need to name the lie that you have been living. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult because the first prison that we must escape is the one that we do not know we are in. And how do you escape a prison that you are not aware that you are in? It needs you to sit back and do an assessment or an evaluation of your everyday life, of your life. And I think for me, something that I shared in a podcast that I participated in this week, discussing the same topic on self-sabotage, is that for the longest time, I was afraid to sit with my thoughts. In fact, I was afraid about just having that quiet around me. So whenever I'm in the car, I'll put music. Whenever I'm in the house, I'll have something playing in the background. Whenever I take a walk, I want to carry my headphones. And God delivered me, I will say that, because He kind of made sure that my ears do not cooperate with loud noises, and they do not cooperate, especially with any earphones or headphones. So I was forced to walk and digest my thoughts and my actions. And that's when I began realizing that those conversations that I have had, those relationships that have ended, those friendships that did not work out so well, the job, all that kind of brought me to that point. It was not always about other people's fault. So I think for me, I'll say again, just to reiterate what Michelle said, that self-sabotage is very unconscious, but we have to bring it to the conscious so that we can be able to address it.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And I like that you're all agreeing. We have to bring it to the surface. And the thing that you're with Sylvia this week, I can't wait to hear the conversation you had. Sylvia, how do you describe self-sabotage? Actually, to you as a career coach, I know you've seen self-sabotage in many people, so you may have various descriptions of self-sabotage. I'd like to hear them from you.
Thank you, Celine. First and foremost, yes, I do see, observe, and listen to a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors and belief systems that we have in our careers, especially in the coaching clients I handle. But let me just describe my own self-sabotage activity that I really participated in for the longest time in the corporate career. Yeah, so there is this part of you do something good, and then when you are congratulated or somebody says that was well done, you give a very funny comment like, it was a team activity, or it's nothing, you are minimizing your own impact yourself. And in that way, you're sending signals that you're not good enough after all, because if you cannot recognize your own work when you're being applauded for it, you take it like it is a normal thing, yet somebody has seen the much that you've done, then that is in a way a huge self-sabotaging behavior. I contributed to my own self-sabotaging behavior for a long time. This is because we brought up in a way that we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. And in that way, we imagine that drawing attention to ourselves is wrong. Drawing attention to yourself is not necessarily a bad thing, but how do you respond to that? So when you deflect compliments or you deflect good report that you're receiving, then you will stop attracting them, because you are the one who doesn't appreciate that you're cheating your own work. So I remember there was a particular incident where I served a client in a former workplace, and this is a very interesting story because I served a client and they were too amazed and they said, I'm going to write your story in the Business Daily. And interestingly, that was highlighted because somebody else in the corporate affairs at that point is the one who saw the story, which I had not seen it myself. They forwarded it to me. I read it and then left it at that. So that was a missed opportunity. That spotlight is an opportunity for me to advance in my career because I minimized my own achievement. I did not use it anywhere to showcase exactly who I was, and yet it had been seen, it was out there, believing that after all, it's in the Business Daily. Why? Everyone should be knowing. Imagining that everyone has the opportunity and the time to read your story and make a decision about it. So for me, that was the worst kind of self-sabotaging behavior that I ever did in my corporate world. And it definitely affected me because it didn't make me grow faster than it should have been. But of course, that is a story that I tell for others to learn from. I don't know I know many are going through the same, or they've made such decisions, or they're deflecting because we have been accustomed to believe that humility is keeping quiet. Humility is not that. Humility is actually articulating what you're worth or you're made of as a way of stewardship and not necessarily appearing in a bragging or stepping on others kind of way. So our definition of humility is way, I would say that it is not, it's the wrong sign of the way of describing what humility is all about. Yeah, so you'd think that you keeping quiet, one day someone will see your good work and award you for the good well done. I keep telling my clients that work has no mouth. Speak to your things. Speak for yourself because nobody is able to remember all your achievements. Imagining Michelle or Victoria, who handles many people in a day, when you do the performance review, which is done towards the end of the year, depending on your calendar, how it looks like, it's very difficult to remember what Celine did in January if the Celine herself has not documented and is able to articulate what they did and the impact they brought. So that, for me, that was the greatest part of self-sabotaging, just being quiet and not speaking for yourself, expecting one to speak for itself. Well, that has no mouth. You do have a mouth. So you need to keep describing or rather expressing who you are and what you're made of, not in a bragging way, but in a way of being a steward of the good gifts that you have that God has given you. Yeah, so that's the definition of self-sabotage, really, in that context of the story and my experience.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And I love that you have touched on self advocacy, which is something many people don't do. And this is something that we will touch on as we continue this conversation later on. Thank you so much for that. And the explanation our panelists, our ladies have given us shows us how multi layered the concept of self sabotage is. It is not one dimensional, it is not one thing, and I think many listening can already see themselves somewhere in those definitions. And we have Juliana Kulohoma saying, for me, I have experienced self sabotage in the workplace and outside when opportunities, especially speaking opportunities, knock. At the workplace, I will do the work, someone take credit for it and keep silent. Keep silent, play along, and this often at times will put me on the spotlight. With speaking opportunities, I'll be called upon and somehow miss on them. Thankfully, I am now self aware and embrace every opportunity. Kudos to you, Juliana, for getting yourself to a point that you speak up for yourself and take the chance to embrace every opportunity that comes your way. Janet Baraza says, um, a point where you articulate your voice and you don't feel heard. How do you handle such situations? So this is a question to Sylvia. Is a point where you articulate your voice and you don't feel heard. How do you handle such situations? I will allow Sylvia to give a response to that.
All right. Thank you very much for that question, Jeanette. First, it's good for you to have identified that you feel that your voice is not being heard. Well, I would say that also feelings are not facts, and it would be nice to know exactly if it is really a feeling or it is indeed something that is openly being ignored where you are at. So, on that note, I would say that we need to be so aware, or rather, have good networking in the place where you are in. If you're not getting a hearing in the state, don't be a relationship skinny. Be having people who can speak for you, not able to speak for yourself. So, in that way, when you speak for yourself, you should be able to speak for yourself in areas where you have room, and where you do not have room to speak, or rather nobody you're not able to access that room, it is good to have an advocate outside your own circle. And relationships are built over time. Of course, you cannot it's difficult for you to advance on your own. Yes, it is possible to do that. Some people have done that on their own, not very involving others, so it takes you a longer time and way costlier. So when you build a relationship, you don't depend on one person that to help you, or when you speak for yourself. I'm sure when you're speaking to yourself, you're expecting the audience of a particular person to speak for you in whatever you want, because it is possible that you don't get audience where you are at. But have you explored the level above that person who you expected, or even laterally elsewhere where you can be heard and where somebody can listen to you? And also, where all that is failing, it is also okay to look for other places where you can. It is possible for you to look outside where you are at the moment. And it calls for discernment to know when to leave, or rather when to advocate in another place where you feel that you'll be more impactful and you will feel heard. It's good to separate that it's just not your feeling, but it's actually something that is repeating itself. Because sometimes we can be overwhelmed by our own feelings, which are not necessarily facts.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. I believe, Janet, your question has been answered. And if you have any more questions or clarifications, feel free to chat, to send it in the chat box. And
Hi, Selena actually had something to add on that.
yes, Michelle.
Because that's something that happens quite a lot. And actually, I experienced it not too long ago. And it shocked me because I'd forgotten. It hadn't happened for a while. And when it happened, I was taken aback because I was like, oh my gosh, even at my big title, I can still be in a space where I am not heard. And some of the things that I was reminding myself, and in addition to the tactics that Sylvia talks about, is to recognize the gendered element around it. So there's actually a term for it. It's called hisplaining, where as a woman, you'll have an idea, you say it doesn't land or no one reacts, and then a guy will say exactly the same thing, but then now people are like, oh, that's a very good idea. And one of the things, and we have to practice it, is to call it out. And you can call it out in a way where you keep your dignity, you keep your power, but it would be like, yes, thank you very much for naming the idea, which was what I had said earlier. And what I meant about that, or when someone is trying to take your win, you can acknowledge and be like, yes, thank you so much for recognizing the win, which I did, and this is what I did. But like, you have to call it out, because when you let other people take your voice or take your ideas, then that's where you even become more invisible. And then the second thing, and this is something that I always say, and for myself and for women leaders, this situation where I was not heard and I felt invisible, honestly, the person who saved me was another woman leader. And because I made my point, first of all, the guy who was heading was not even making eye contact. In fact, even now, I'm like, does this person have an issue with me or what? And then it was like just completely like I hadn't spoken, like I was invisible in the room. And then this woman leader who was also, she was actually the main boss. She actually circled back and was like, Michelle raises a very important point. So she acknowledged me. And I remember when she did, I felt so, actually, I became emotional. I felt so touched. And immediately I just felt like I love this woman. Like this is a woman I would follow. And it was such a good learning for me because when you as a woman are in a place of authority or you notice something like that, please step up for your sister. Like back your sister, like give her that voice, recognize the voice that the opinion that she made so that she can also be heard.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And still sticking on you now that you've mentioned, there's an instance that someone stood up or circled back to you. We have a question from Rukia. She says, how do you obtain a mentor or advocate when entering a new work environment?
Thanks for that. Yeah, there are some workplaces where the systems and the structures are such that you can find a mentor, and you can get into networks where you can find someone who will help you navigate. But in a number of other systems, it's like kila mtu for themselves. You have to G-sort. And my advice is, especially when you're in a new work environment, don't be in a rush. Like take your time to just read the landscape, find out who's who are the good people, who are, like just read that environment, start to make your relationships pole pole, like start with where you are around you. And then over time, as you begin to understand the environment, the kind of people who people look up to, people admire, people want to be around, those could be potential mentors. Now, there are different ways because this is something that I discovered when I was talking with young people the other day, where finding mentors is very challenging for them because like a lot of mentors are overstretched. And one of the ways when you don't yet have an official mentor is to reverse engineer what people are doing. So if you see a leader that you are admiring, someone who you're like, just observe them closely and like really be diagnosing what is this person doing? Why are they admired? How are they showing up? If you're like seeing a woman leader that somehow is not part of that petty or like she's a profile that you really admire, like reverse engineer that and see what are those behaviors, how is she showing up, and then discussing with your friends amongst yourselves of how you can begin to adapt that. And then over time, as you build those relationships, you ask. So like once you get that relationship, like, hey, can you be my mentor? But don't do that day one, because like a mentor is not necessarily there has to be that connection. And then the advocate, because this is a space that I am right now as a leader, and it's something that I've been pushing in my spaces because I say mentorship is insufficient. There's a point where it's not about mentorship. As a woman, you have the skills, you've done the work, you're capable. What is keeping that door closed is that there isn't someone. Sylvia talked about the rooms that the advocate. You need someone in that room that is speaking your name and saying you must be given a chance and is fighting for you to get in that door. And for those, like it's a challenge that I'd give to every woman leader is when you're mentoring people or as you're growing as a woman professional. And by the way, this is something even for myself. The other day, and I was feeling, my heart was pounding, I was sweating, but I asked a guy who I really admire, and I wanted him to be an advocate for me. And that act of asking for what I want, it was even today, it is hard. But for ourselves, like you ask, just lean into it. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that they don't do anything, which leaves you exactly where you are right now. So Yeah, that's what I'd say in my 2 bits of what I've learned about mentoring and advocacy.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that. And I like that I had put the word mentor and advocate as one. Thank you for putting it as two different separate words. And for women, having an advocate is very one. I think it's a good thing. They'll open doors. I believe in a previous conversation I had with someone, as women who are in leadership positions, if you get into a room, always leave the door open for the next woman to be able to enter into. So that is the same case as advocacy. That means I have gotten to this space and I am leaving the door open for everyone else that has a chance to get to this space. And I'll be there waiting to guide or take you on as we all grow together. So let's go to Victoria. For women who fear stepping into leadership roles, seeing that you say you are not a procrastinator, but you also mentioned that as someone who does not procrastinate, you have to plan. You just don't plunge or jump. How do you suggest for these women, the ones who fear stepping into leadership roles, how do you suggest they overcome the I am not ready mindset without taking reckless risks? Like, yes, I'm not ready, and then if they get to the mindset of taking that risk, they should not take the risk without a proper plan, I believe.
Thank you so much, Celine. And I'll just borrow from what my co-authors have talked about, because one, I will say that leadership is in all spaces. You do not have to be sitting in a position or a title that, is branded, leadership, for you to be a leader. So I think start small. And I think most people fear starting small. And I'll tell you, I think my career so far has spanned over almost 15 to 17 years thereabout, because I started working quite early. And I did not start where I am. So one, it's very important to just map out your journey so that you know where do you want to go. You cannot get where you want to go if you really don't know where to go. So I think it's important for women to, one, be bold, be very bold, and ask for what you feel that is entitled. If you look at the statistics today, the wage gap is still very wide. What women earn for similar positions that men hold is quite significant. There's still a very huge pay gap. And that's one of the things that we try and correct as gender practitioners, because that is my space. So are women getting fair wage for the work that they are doing? Are you putting your skills to proper use? Do you even know your potential in the first place? Are you aware that let me just give a small story. The other day I saw a position and I was like, oh, this is a really nice position, I think I can apply. But of course, we second guess ourselves, which I did, and I was like, well, this is maybe to a donor organization, and I don't think I'm at that level. Then I got a call from somebody who actually wanted me to be an advocate for them to actually apply for the same position, put in a good word for me. I'm applying to this position. So I told him, okay, I did, of course, share that. I did not share that I was also interested in the same position. But when he sent his CV, I was like, this person is so bold. Of course, it was a guy. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, my CV is much heavier than this particular person's CV. So why am I hesitant about applying for this position? If this person feels that they can do the job, why is it that I'm holding myself back? I felt I had more experience, I had more, I had met the qualifications, but I was second guessing myself. Well, I did go ahead and apply for the job, although it did not go through. I accepted and it's fine. But that was a moment for me where I told myself, I'll never hesitate again. Send that CV. And as Michelle said, what's the worst that that can happen? You still get to retain the job that you have if you've not resigned or if you're not looking for a job. So that bold step will not make you regress. It will even open your mind in a way that, like for me now, it made me feel a bit more confident in future. If I am looking at a role, I'm like, okay, these are the kind of CVs that other applicants are sending. So I did learn something from that experience. So just asking women to really evaluate, know your worth. It's really, really important. And you cannot know your worth if, sometimes the society tries to, confine us in a certain space. You're a mother, you have young children. You had Michelle talking about, she stopped hiking, of course, because she has the responsibility of care over young children. And for her, that was a decision she made. But sometimes society also confines us in that space where, you'll be absent so many times because maybe you have to take care of your children. There are all these school activities, there are medical emergencies. So we are already judged enough by the society. We do not also need to judge ourselves, And I keep telling the young people that are around me, especially young women, I keep telling them that, the voices from the outside are already loud enough. You do not have to add to that voice. You do not have to participate in your own downfall or hold yourself back. The world is already doing that enough to us as women. So I think it's important for us to be bold, and that starts with the first step, where be aware of who you are and also accept who you are. If you're a powerful woman, if you're a vocal woman, don't let the voice don't let the world suppress your voice. Use those things that you think are quirks, negative things. Like I keep telling people, for me, I can talk the whole day. By the way, you'll have to tell me at some point, okay, that's enough, because I'm a trainer. So I used to think, oh my God, I can really go on and on. But I realized it's actually what I do. I can stand for 5 whole days and facilitate a workshop by myself. So why would I be, why would I want to suppress my voice and say, let me hold myself back? So one, we are a leader. We are leaders in every space that we are, be it at home. We need to take up the mantle. And even at work, show your leadership by demonstrating your skills. Don't hold yourself back from taking those tough assignments. Don't hold yourself back when opportunities come through and no one else wants to volunteer. Go do your research. There's so much information out there. You just need to equip yourself and find the right people to hold your hand so that you can transition to that space where you want to grow into.
That was very, very lovely, Victoria. As she has said, do not just plunge into the darkness without a plan. Do your research, make a plan, and also, it doesn't guarantee that it will be successful, but lessons will be learned from it. There is this term we used to say: if you jump into a pool and you don't know how to swim, you'll drown definitely. But if you prepare, take swimming lessons and jump, you'll at least float and you won't drown. It's the same case. Don't jump or plunge into water without the basic necessities of like swimming. You won't drown, but you learn lessons from it. And Victoria has stated that recently she had applied for a job, but she had hesitated. Hesitation is also something that is a form of self-sabotage. And when someone else came to her for advocacy, she saw that her CV was a bit more qualified than what his was. And I'll direct this to Sylvia because she also speaks so much about advocacy and not shrinking yourself in silence or hiding yourself. Many individuals believe good work will speak for itself. And in the book you wrote, you were performing when you're doing your NDR performance review, you were told, keep up the good work, keep up the good work. There was no, you can do this better. If you want this promotion, you can do this. So many individuals believe good work will speak for itself and do not self advocate. So why is visibility and self promotion, the keyword is self promotion, so hard yet so necessary, especially in the corporate space?
Wow,
Yeah.
Selena, that's a very um it is as raw as it was when it was happening to me. So yes, so there was this particular time I had felt that I'm stuck and I wanted to advance in my career because I had been so used to my job and I was all nearly on autopilot. In the morning, I know what to do. If you had to ask me in the middle of the night to do that thing, I would do it without thinking with my eyes closed. Yeah. So it was that I had really been so used to, and I was very good at my job. But I felt I'm stuck. I need to get out of here. I literally felt like I am in that in a place where I'm so caged, and I just felt it felt like I needed somebody just to give me wings and fly out of this place that I am in. So in that moment of wanting to advance, I started wondering what's going on. Yes, I have not been measured, and that you're in the scales, and that if anything was wanting at that point. But each time I asked for feedback, I was given thumbs up. You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you were doing. Then I wondered, why is this not translating to anything? I am doing well as you have told me. But was not very clear was, what do I need to get out of here? Yes. So that was the missing part. Why I was doing well, but who knew? Between me and my team lead, right? But who else knows? And that team lead, not necessarily that they are bad people, they have a whole team of people they are handling. So if Sylvia is not speaking herself, yes, you are the one who could have approved something for me, but do I really remember all the time? Like what I keep telling the clients that I coach, remember, they're human beings, they are not bad. They are bound to forget what you have done. So you need to speak for yourself, but be sure that the work that you're doing well is out there. Who else needs to know, and who knows and who doesn't know what you're doing? So for me, that what happened is I sleep with myself. I don't know. I'm hearing an echo. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you, but we can also hear the echo.
Yeah, I think somebody needs to mute their mic, maybe.
Go ahead, Sylvia.
Correct. I think we're good. All right. So I was saying that that evening, after that review, where I am being told I'm doing very well and seeing that this is not added anywhere, I had a meeting with myself. Of course, I love to do that a lot of times, doing my own personal reflection. Then I looked at how I was coming out, and I didn't like that kind of me who is being told continue doing what you're doing. So it meant, like, was it so average that it didn't really show anything after all, so that I am not advancing. I feel really I need to get out of where I am, but nothing was happening to me at that point. So that is the story that is really comes out in my chapter. That's chapter 6, and doing the patterns that hold us back. So what happened after sitting down with myself, he did something incredible. I remember sharing this story with a coach that I was working with at that point, and it sounded funny, because how do you just write a letter to fire yourself? But I did it. When I fired myself, meaning I did not want to be identified as that person who is just doing well and not speaking for themselves, waiting for work to speak, and yet I have just seen that it's not speaking for me. I needed to start speaking for myself so that I can advance. So self-advocacy for me came out powerfully after going through that exercise of literally firing myself and writing a letter to myself saying this and this is what I want to way forward. And of course, mirroring a person who you admire, as Michelle has rightly put it earlier. Looking at a profile of a person and seeing what you desire about them without necessarily telling them also does help. Like following that profile and seeing the things that are desirable, and even picking there's a concept I also learned from a book, I think it's Think and Grow Rich, where you have an imaginable board of directors who you would be asking for advice in what area on that, just in your mind. So for me, the visualization exercise really did a good a good part of helping me come out from that cocoon where it was, yes, comfortable doing things on autopilot without a struggle, but deep within I felt this was no longer good for me. After doing that exercise, I started showing up differently, showing up as a person who I wanted to become. Yes, I was owning everything that I am doing. Now, when in a team meeting, I would not shy away from raising my hand because clearly work was not speaking. It had not worked. I had practiced that for a very long time and headed nowhere. So when I started raising my hand, of course, at first I was not confident enough, but confidence came by raising my hand and taking up projects that were being floated and raising my hand to do other things that were available for grabs, but nobody was picking the opportunities. So out of that, I was able to deliver in other projects in addition to my daily job without necessarily sabotaging the work I was doing. That earned me recognition, and somehow my name started being in people's lips. And that is how I got to get a promotion without necessarily asking for it anymore. You see, I was actively asking, I need to move this next level. And what do I need to improve to get there? But the answers were not forthcoming. It was just, you're doing very well. And that showed that no, people aren't necessarily bad. It's only that, how do we know that this is what you want? You're not becoming that person. You're not embodying that person who you really want to become here and now. I think our biggest self-sabotage is waiting for the title, for example, so that you can do that job which you are desiring to have, or waiting for this promotion first, and then you start doing what you really desire. Look, nobody would see that. You need to embody that person who you want to become, and then people will start noticing you. Sometimes some people just decide to advocate for you because you have made yourself visible, and everyone now admires and wants to be doing what you are doing. I remember after a short while, I started being invited to speak to other teams on how I was handling my own self-development. And that was something I had not consciously decided to do. I was just working on myself, but yet it started reflecting there, and I started attracting opportunities in many areas after I did my own handling my own self-sabotaging behavior. And of course, it's not a destination, as we say. Even when we sit here as authors, it doesn't mean that we have overcome and now we are no longer experiencing self-sabotage. It comes at every level. The point is being aware and knowing what to do after that. Once you are aware, so what? Are you sitting down and continuing with the self-sabotage behavior, or now you know how to silence that voice? It is a journey, and it's a daily thing. And a part of what we also discussed recently with Victoria, I think in the podcast that we had, was that we continue to learn daily, and it's not necessarily a destination, and it is a journey, not a destination as yet.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And what she has said is, sorry, visibility is not bragging, it's not showing off, it's about owning your contribution to success. And I like to connect how visibility affects leaders, seeing that what authors and people in the audience are leaders. And I'd like to direct this to Michelle. How much does visibility matter in leadership success? And you say that you are building a legacy of leadership that is human, that is visible in the book. That is what you say, yes. You say you're building a legacy in leadership that is strong, visible, and human. So, how much does visibility, strategic visibility, to say so, matter in leadership success, and can invisible leaders still be effective? Also, before she comes in, I'd love to hear from the audience too. Do you think a leader can be effective without being visible? Yes or no? And if yes, why? If no, why? Also, you can put an explanation at the forefront to defend your answers. And Rukia, I see you have posted a question. I'll ask that question as we close out. It will be perfect at that time. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. Visibility. I'd say I'd throw a question back to the audience, like, would you follow someone who you know nothing about? Yeah, like where does credibility come from? When you're like, actually, I like what this person is doing. I like this leader. I think I want to know more from this person. Like that comes from, like, the starting point is you have to have heard about them, or you have to have seen what they've done. And so it's not even like, for me, it's absolutely critical. And one of the myths that we tell ourselves, and I think Victoria and Sylvia have talked about this as well. I think especially for women, though I see it, I think it cuts across genders, because it's in our culture, because we have that thing of usiongee wazee wakiwa, when you have wazee wakiwa hapo ndani usiongee, so it's those ones of like, please, and that cultural thing of, because of respect, you should not be talking, let the elders be the one to talk. So that's one. And then two, that cultural thing of being humble, of like, please, like, what's this at? So those two elements that are such a deep part of our culture, those are the ones that begin to undermine us in the workplace. Because when you go in the workplace and you're there being humble, you're waiting for people, like Sylvia said, everyone, we are all very self-centered. It's the human condition. We are all focused on ourselves. So that idea that people will just miraculously see the work you're doing and be amazed by the work you're doing when you've not advocated for yourself, that's a myth that you're telling yourself. And so you can be doing all the good work, but if no one hears about it, then no one cares. And that's when you see, even I think you guys in the workplace, that's how you see yourself being overlooked. And then the people who are perere, who everything they do, even when they've done one thing, like, how we make fun at, you went and you opened the tree that was planted. Those are the ones who are getting promoted. It's just a fact of life. And so that visibility is absolutely key. And so for me, that's one thing. Like, you can't even get into leadership if people don't even know what you're about. Staying in leadership and being able to lead effectively, which means that your leadership is actually having an outcome. It's actually something is happening. Again, requires that visibility, because how are you going to lead people who don't even know what your plan is? So you have to communicate effectively. What your vision is as a leader needs to be clear. It needs to be visible. That you have to inspire people to follow you. And in this world that we live in that is so complex and dynamic, those traditional forms of I'm the one who will tell you, that's not how leadership works in reality today. Leadership today is about being able to inspire that direction and align people behind you. But those people have to understand enough about what you want and have to be so bought in themselves that they are motivated and they are now executing in alignment with your vision themselves. That's what successful leadership is today. You cannot even begin to lead like that if you're not visible. Like, it's a non-starter. So for me, that visibility, it's absolutely 100%. Do you need to be delivering results? Yes. But the myth that we have is that as long as I'm doing good work, that is okay. Not in leadership. The results are important, but they are insufficient. That visibility, that positioning, that influence, that stakeholder management, navigating office politics, because we are human beings, we are political, are also critical capabilities if you want to lead.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And Rukia has posed this question back to you. You've spoken about humility, and she's saying, isn't it the cultural practices of humility that helps a person be suitable in being a selfless team member?
And actually reframe that. So there's a way that you can, and this is why it's so important to ground yourself in your why and in your values. So humility can be a two-edged sword. There's a way that humility can elevate your leadership. And there's a way that humility can be, now you're just being a martyr. You're putting yourself on the cross. People they'll crucify you, they'll walk all over you, you make yourself a doormat. And they'll be like, "Rukia ni mzuri." So you'll be very nice. Rukia, she ni mpole. They'll love you, but, and it's great. If that is your goal in life, good for you. But if your goal is to lead, you cannot be Rukia ni mtoto msichana mzuri. No. And so how you lead with humility is, don't be like how let me use myself, how I try to lead in humility, because yes, I believe in being humble. But for me, humility is when I am on that stage, am I elevating myself or am I elevating myself and my team? Am I opening and sharing the stage with others? Am I giving people their flowers? Because all of us have a role to play. As the leader, I'm the vision holder. I'm the one who holds the vision, and that's my flowers. So I will claim my flowers. But in my role right now, I'm not the one who's executing. I haven't executed for a long time. It is my team. And they are the ones who are problem solving. My role is to create the space for innovation to happen, for creativity to happen, for people to be their best selves. And so when they are their best selves and they deliver excellent results, I will give them their flowers of like, these results, we could not have achieved them. You guys did that. But my flowers is, as the leader, I'm the one who created the space and I created the conditions for them to thrive in this way. And so when you find, and part of your journey as you're growing as a leader will be to find a way that you can show up authentically. That doesn't mean that in order for others to rise, you're the one who has to be left behind, or you're the one who's now the doormat for people to step over. Because if you want to lead, that's not a winning strategy.
I think, Sylvia, I just want to add to that conversation and just to remind every listener that, you cannot learn how to ride a bicycle by reading about how to ride a bicycle. So confidence is built through action. You act, and slowly by slowly, you begin to become more confident. It's a muscle. You have to exercise it for it to become stronger. So I think start by making small decisions, speak up in meetings, lead a project here and there, take initiative, and you have to show up with intentionality. and with purpose. Because if you don't, then, any wave can take you there. So if you have decided today, I want to grow into leadership, first of all, again, I said, give yourself time. Don't be reckless. Don't go into places where you are not, because you also need to know what power you have. And some of these things, you do not want to expose your power before or your purpose before you are ready, because again, the world can beat you down so bad. And I know it is a learning experience, and sometimes we need to go through those experiences, but I think it's important for us to just recognize that we need to be intentional. Don't be reckless, because again, it will also diminish your shine, when you go there and you've really messed up, and it will set you back. So lead and go into every room with intention. Know what you want from that room. If your role is to get a mentor or an advocate, then do that today. Then tomorrow, come up with another strategy and walk into that room with another intention. And in slowly by slowly, you get to where you dream of being. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Victoria. Rukia says, thank you so much for your answers. I believe she's satisfied. Juliana says, confidence is built through action, show up with intentionality and with purpose. Yes, intentionality and purpose. And I always say this, if you find your why in life, you will have a good quality of life. And still with you, Victoria, um, in overcoming self-sabotage, we have to practice self-mastery to avoid erasing our true authentic selves. What practices that work towards self-mastery have helped you move past the patterns of self-sabotage? And if any other author in the panel has anything to chime in after Victoria, you can also do so, because this is a broad question.
Thank you so much, Celine. And I think there's something that I came across the other day, and it was so powerful that human beings prefer faces to masks. I mean, masks to faces. So not very many of us are very comfortable looking at our face, and I mean this figuratively, knowing your true authentic self. We prefer to have a face which we wear to work, one which we wear to parties, one which we wear to webinars like this. We prefer to have another face which we use, to approach our family, our friends. It is so easy to keep masking yourself up to a point where you even forget yourself, because you have almost all these personalities that you're juggling. You're this, you're that, and if all these people are put in a room and they're asked to describe you, they will totally describe almost like 10, 12 people, because you show up different every day. And I believe that it is very important for you as a young leader or a growing leader or a leader to discover who you are. Be bold enough to uh, face the face under the mask or in the mirror. So who are you? When you are there in your quiet space, when in your unseen space, in your home where you do not have to pretend, who is that person? So I think it's important for us to understand who we are at the very least, for our own peace of mind, because again, you might judge yourself too harshly because at a point in the day you had to shift faces from this friendly person to this boss lady, because now you've entered a room where you need to show people that you're not nonsense. So you'll sit back and reflect at the end of the day, and you'll ask yourself, so who was I in that room? Is that the person that I want to be? And I've had such moments where I've had to sit down and ask myself, am I allowing the world to change who I am? And that's something that we need to every day reflect upon, because you have this person who God created, who put together perfectly. Like, God did not put us together and he said, I think she needs a bit correction, and panel beating the earth will do that. We were made perfectly in his image. When we allow the world to change us, because someone was rude to you in the office and you decide, I'm going to be upset the whole day, it wears us out and it wears us down, and we cannot be able to actually show up in our best element. I think it's very important for us to mask off, be authentic. And I always say, come home to yourself, your true self. Who is that woman who you want to be, who you want to be comfortable with? You don't want to be called to a function and you're like, oh my God, now I have to, put on this face because I know there is somebody XYZ who I interacted with last night in a cocktail, and I cannot allow them to see me with my guard down. So I feel like it's very important for us as leaders to be very skill yourself so that you're confident about speaking in every room, in every platform that you're given, that you can have the same message, who you portray. The same lady that walks into the boardroom is the same lady that goes home to her children, is the same lady that, I'm talking at a deeper surface level, because of course you will not be, talking child's play in the boardroom, but I'm talking about being an authentic leader who, if you're kind, you're kind. You've met people who are very cunning in terms of, they'll be speaking one language to other people, but they'll be very unkind to other people. That's not being authentic. So, one, it's very important for us to heal our inner selves. And I want to just say that this book for me was very therapeutic. Writing this book, it took me 2 years, by the way. Mr. Radido knows my story, because the first time I started writing, I realized I was actually, you know, uh, talking about things that I've not healed. So for me, this was a very therapeutic journey, getting to this point where I've written this chapter, because I was able to uh, evaluate so many things and resolve so many things that had happened in my past. So you need to also resolve some of the things that you have gone through, the experiences that have shaped who you are at that point, or your thought process, and have a complete transformation of your mind and your being, so that you can be able to show up authentic self. So just to close before I give my authors an opportunity, is just to say, I always tell people, come home to yourself, because you might have veered off so much from yourself. So you need to come home to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Sylvia, do you have something to say?
Yes, let me add on to something. While you are addressing that self-mastery, it is good to know your limits as a person. How far can you go? Because if you do not know your limits, then you would not be able to navigate some of these things that happen in the corporate world, because there are moments that you really know need to keep boundaries. Yeah. And boundaries, by the way, are not walls, they are bridges for you to advance. So don't be afraid to put a boundary thinking it is you're putting a wall that will block you from the world. I usually like to say that for every yes that you say, you have said no to something. And for every no that you say, it's a yes to something. So you better be clear on the yeses that you do and the no's that you do. In fact, the more the better, because that means you'll be saying yes to things that are aligned to who you're becoming and where you want to go, and you know your why too well. So when you keep a boundary, it is definitely protection for yourself and also protecting that other person. Because if you continue wearing a mask or becoming many different people at different times, you will get tired, and people will not be able to relate to your. So as Victoria, you come home to yourself. And home is home. There's no better way to describe what home is. Home is where you really do not need to act out anything. You just be yourself. Of course, it is good to be discerning to know when to do what and where and to whom. So again, need to be so discerning even as we practice self-mastery, because self-mastery to somebody else means different things to different people. So that's my objection.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Michelle.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that.
I had
You're muted. You're muted.
oh, sorry for that. I had posed a question stating that self mastery is one of the practices that we use to overcome self sabotage. So, Sylvia and Victoria have stated what practices work for them towards self mastery to avoid doing erasure of your authentic self. So, to you, what are the practices that you do and
Yeah.
possibly we can adopt?
Yeah. I actually agreed with a lot with what especially Sylvia was talking about knowing your limits, that continuous improvement. Those are tactics that I use myself. Um, and then I'd say, just like Victoria hinted at, like leaning into the discomfort. Growing is not easy. It's not and what Sylvia had said earlier, that you need to be showing up and practice showing up as the person you want to become. And doing that is really difficult. But taking it a step at a time, really understanding your why, understanding where you're going, and like understanding what it will take to get there. Um, it starts off very uncomfortable, but then as you begin to get comfortable with it, I can't remember the name of this, but there's actually the circles of mastery. So you start off with where it's unconscious incompetence, where you don't even know that you don't know. Then you get to conscious incompetence, where you know that you don't know, and then you start working on building that, where you're now beginning to get competent, and that's really where the growth begins to happen. And so beginning to do that, and just take those steps over time, you look back and it becomes, you get to a point of now unconscious mastery, where it's just who you are. Is what I'd say. The second thing that I'd say, and this is something that I say to a lot of the people that I mentor, what I've noticed, especially in the Kenyan culture, even in the Nigerian, in a lot of African cultures, we tend to disproportionately value the paper, the technical. So you have I have a master's, I have a PhD, I have this other master's, and then I have the other master's. In your leadership journey, it actually, at a point in your journey, and even in my journey, it became less about my technical expertise and more about my behavior. And so what I really advise a lot of people is, yeah, you do need that technical, but then don't give it. We tend to give that technique, we give it too much too much prominence. And in leadership, it's not your technical skills that get you there. It is your emotional intelligence. It is how you show up. It is how you communicate, how you make people feel, whether you're inspiring people, how you can get other people to do the work and to do it well. Those are the behaviors that distinguish whether you're going to be in management or whether you're going to be in executive C-suite roles. And so as you're growing yourself and developing mastery, my advice would be to really lean into developing those behavioral competencies. And certainly for me, when the penny dropped about like my emotional intelligence and I started really working on building my self-awareness, understanding my impact on other people, how to regulate my emotions, how to communicate, how to regulate how I show up, that's when the switch happened. And that's when now I was able to perform at this level. And even like now, even as I continue on my leadership journey, that's really what makes the difference.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle. And I'd like to note that she has mentioned EQ, emotional intelligence, which is something a lot of people are not aware of. And I would like to encourage that as leaders here in the audience and the panelists and in YouTube, we should strive to master the circle of mastery. As she has said, you can go check it up and know what it is and start working towards that. And I love how each of the authors has a practical tool. Sylvia said, know your limits. Victoria said, get comfortable in being uncomfortable. It shows that there is no one size fits all approach, but intentionality makes the difference. And as we prepare to hear their closing statements, um, Rukia, yes, had asked, can the panel of speakers please share a suggested list of books to read to develop the mindset shift required for self-development? Um, we have Michelle, she replied, and I could just request you to just say them out loud for anyone that is not in the meeting that will listen to it later on. And as we get your closing statement, and then we'll have Victoria. If you have any books to recommend for the audience, please do. And also and also we'll have Sylvia. And also a recommendation from me, read Self-Sabotage. Everything is in there. Yes. Michelle.
Thank you. I'd say actually one of the things that has struck me during this panel is that the book Self-Sabotage, it seems that like what the three of us and I'd say our other co-authors seem have in common is that for each of us, our chapters were it was a labor of love, where we've become really vulnerable because we lift the hood to expose how we've messed ourselves up. I was really touched when Victoria said that it took 2 years because she hadn't healed. Certainly, writing my chapter was also cathartic because for me, it was like, I'd say I feel now it was like the end of my journey of healing, but it was also a very difficult chapter for me to write. And so what I'd encourage, like those of you who have joined this webinar and who are listening, is I'd say that the tips and the nuggets that are in there, they are gold. And please, I hope you guys will receive them as that. It's a gift, because we are sharing things that in the workplace no one will tell you because everyone has their mask and no one is being vulnerable. And in a work environment, it's like, yeah, you discover or not, because it's cutthroat and everyone's trying to get to the top. And so I really hope that when you read this book, a lot of the learnings will resonate. I think, like Sylvia said, we are not Michelle Obama. We are normal women like you. We are Kenyans struggling, and so we are hoping that our stories will be relatable. If we can overcome how we self-sabotaged, then you could too. And that's our hope, and that you can avoid some of the things that we did that held us back, and that it slowed us down so that you can reach even further than we have. Yeah, and so the books that have shaped my leadership journey and continue to shape my leadership journey, I really do enjoy reading. And that's how I learn. I learn through reading. Is certainly reading the Sabotage book, reading like my co-author stories. Like I'm also getting gems from there, so I'd put that on the list. But when I was starting like seriously on my leadership journey, the book that just transformed how I thought about leadership was that first one, How Women Rise. It's break the 12 habits holding you back. It's by someone Helgenberg. But if you Google it, that book is groundbreaking. And what I love about it is the way it's framed is not in a way that blames. It doesn't blame us. And the framing, which was also transformational for me, was the habits that we have as women that tend to hold us back are grounded in our greatest strengths. And so that concept of a two-edged sword, because when we leverage like our humility and our empathy in a different way, it's a superpower. It's what actually makes us so powerful as women leaders. But when we overdo it on the other side, it can also be the one that holds us back. And so I strongly recommend that book. And then I love Brené Brown. Brené Brown, she's the leading voice right now internationally on vulnerability, and her books, and even just like watch her TED Talk. I think her TED Talk, it's on Netflix, but you can even find it on YouTube. So two books, she's done quite a number of books, but the two books that really resonated with me was Dare to Lead, which was one of the best leadership books that I read about leading with authenticity, where you don't lose your heart, you don't have to become an automaton, you don't have to be so harsh, so you can be your empathetic self, caring, and also lead well. And then the other one that really resonated with me was The Gifts of Imperfection, because especially as women, part of what we are conditioned for is to be perfect. And I think that perfectionism, I find it really being more with us girls than the boys. The boys will be very comfortable with something that's half done, it's shoddy, they look shoddy, but us guys, so how to really leverage and lean into that and turn it into a superpower and for it not to hold us back. And then the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, actually that's a very recent book. I just read it the other day. And I loved it because the insights that it's giving about how to, it's about like just that, at the core of it is being able to lead with authenticity and being able to lead in a way that where you're aligned, your values, your purpose, and the world, like it's all in alignment. And how as a leader, if you're able to get into a space where your values, your purpose, what the universe wants for you, what God intended for you, when all of that is in alignment, how you can show up as a leader. So I loved that book. And then Good Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, which talks a lot about the behaviors that we have as African women, and how they also hold us back in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And the book, she was saying how women rise, break the 12 habits holding you back. It's by Marshall Goldsmith and Sally Helgesen. She'll be that, right? Yeah, so we'll have Victoria and Sylvia.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for just making time to walk this journey, part of this journey with us. For me, I'll say in closing, I think I'll just reiterate practice deep self-awareness. You need to track not only your progress, but your patterns, because patterns are very unconscious. And you realize that these are small things that you do over and over, and they become habits. And in a way, they will definitely influence how you show up. Be accountable to yourself. You really need to um, beyond people saying who you are, what you're doing. I think it's very important for you to learn how to keep promises to yourself. If you say you're going to do a certain thing, if you say you have, like I'll give an example and just say that I had actually committed to writing this book. And at some point I felt, this is not something that I really want to do, especially after I did a whole chapter and shelved it because I needed to heal. But I promised myself I have to undertake this project. And the thing is, the moment you do something and you achieve it, you begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, then you can give yourself um, the same responsibility. I think sometimes I tell myself I need to manage myself like a team, the same way I manage my or the teams that are out there that have been maybe put under my care. The same way that I show up for those teams, I need to show up as a leader for myself, because sometimes we show up as leaders for other people, but we are not very keen on leading ourselves. And then again, it's very important to have a vision that is anchored on purpose, not fear. You're not afraid of, I'm going to kind of, I'll not hit the 40 under 40 list. I had decided, I want, and you are so afraid because time is running out. I think it's more about purpose, the why. Why do you want to achieve all these things? Is it for the glory and honor, or is it for your own growth? Is it for your own fulfillment? So I think it's very important to have a vision that is anchored on purpose, not driven by fear. Then the other thing I will say is you need to recognize when you're off the course and course correct in good time. They say that the further you go on the wrong train or on the wrong matatu, let me use the Kenyan context, because unless unaenda Mombasa, we hardly ever step into trains. But the further once you realize you are on the wrong route, you need to alight. Otherwise, the journey back home will be very long and very costly. So course correct in good time. And just to remind everyone that your obstacles do not define you. The way you respond to the obstacles, that is your legacy. Mistakes are the texture in the fabric of life. You cannot erase them. And in fact, if you try and erase the mistakes that you have done, then you are literally erasing who you are. So it's important that you take those mistakes, make them memorable, be a performer that refuses to let their circumstances define your your act. I'll say that life is an act. So if you allow the mistakes to define your life, then you'll have actually missed the whole point of life. So show up for yourself, show up because really you're the only person who knows yourself better. You're the only person who can save yourself. And once you fall, let that be a defining moment. So I want to encourage the readers. I think Rukia asked about the books. I know Zion Publishers has been really intentional about documenting the stories, as Mr. Radido highlighted at the beginning of this conversation. So there are a couple of books. I know there's one volume that is called How Women Rise. That is the Kenyan chapter. Reach out for that book because it's very contextualized. Our the way we live our lives in Africa or in Kenya could slightly be different from the way the Western world is shaped. So it's very important for us to have that contextualized perspective of how women in the Kenyan space have risen to leadership. There is a book that recently came out called Do It Afraid. I think that is something that I keep emphasizing in my books. Move even when your boots are shaking. Move, and even if your voice is shaking, you need to speak. And then the power of intentionality and the imposter syndrome. I think self-sabotage actually sort of culminates all those chapters, all those books that have been done by Zion publishers. It's almost like a summary of all those books when I look at it, because we speak about those topics in this book. So another book maybe that I would mention that for me has really spoken to me. One is a fun literature, which is The Alchemist, about finding yourself and finding your purpose. Sometimes you might be going very far to look for yourself, the journey to search for yourself, only to find that you took a very long journey, but what you are actually looking for is right where you started your journey. So that is one fun book to read. The other one is Atomic Habits. It's the small habits, and that's what we are covering or addressing in this book. The small habits that you can change on a daily basis. The small things, maybe how you drink your water. Do you drink your water in the morning? And the small habits that we have or can change in our lives that will actually make a very significant difference in the way we show up. So thank you so much. I really appreciate being a panelist on this webinar, and I'll hand over back to Celine to invite Sylvia.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That was such a lovely way to close out. Sylvia?
Thank you very much. Let me just add to what Michelle and Victoria have said, that self-sabotage really, it's not a life sentence. And because we have shared our stories, real stories, nothing, it's unfiltered. Unfiltered stories is what you will find in self-sabotage book. And we were not afraid to share, to appear that it's literally peeled off any mask that we had in our lives that we've put out there for women to leverage. Why? Because we have overcome to some extent, and we want to bring other women with us. We don't want to just know and we have overcome the self-sabotage to some level, but leave it at that. We want also other women to leverage our stories. They don't really need to repeat. I know that there is word out there, experience is the best teacher, but learn from the experience of others. You will accelerate faster and further without necessarily having to go through the pain that we went through in our own lives. So what are the books that I would like to add on? Yes, apart from the self-sabotage, because it's going to help a lot, is there's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. That book is very interesting about what mindset and how look at the flows that you have and falling in love with them so that you can see them as they are not necessarily anything that are to hold you back any further from where you are, but being able to move from there to the next level. So the book, I think the book written by Maxwell Maltz. Yeah.
Could you kindly
Another
repeat
book
the
that I
title of
love
the book?
reading is the
Could you kindly repeat the title of the book?
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Sir?
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Okay.
Psycho-Cybernetics. Let me just pull it here. Just give me a moment. Okay. Here is the book. Psycho-Cybernetics is the name of the book. And it's one book that I loved because it helped me also see that sometimes by looking in and addressing your inner problems would help you to see that it is not whatever appears outside that is the big problem, it's whatever is within. It is really talking about addressing the inner issues. Another book that I love is The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And that for me was such a good book and a wake-up call when I read it first. It's written by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And it's a book that changed perspective on things. And of course, let me add on the Atomic Habits, because it's also a book I love to read. The other book that I read recently is Essentialism. Essentialism is what really helps you subtract from the many things that you think you need to add into yourself, because you're already whole, and that is when you keep thinking, I need this and that and that and that, then you imagine that you need to cover much even when you're already enough as a person. So yeah, those are the books that I would love to add. And a closing remark is that you really don't need to keep searching the incredible. You really are incredible in yourself. Just remove the burdens that you're carrying and continue in your whole self that God already input in you. What you can learn from us is just the addition, not that you are not enough, that you need to add on more things, but just adding to know a different perspective, but you're whole as a person, so that is sabotaging and continuing in the journey that we are meant to travel. Yes, the earlier you disembark from the wrong path, the cheaper and faster you will accelerate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. There you have it, everyone. You have gotten the books, you have gotten the tips from people who have experienced self sabotage and are on the course of, they have corrected and are still doing better. With that, I'd like to thank you all for engaging with us openly, for your questions, your feedback on how the session was. And I would like to kindly recognize one of our authors that is in the audience, Diana Sawe. If she can hear me, can you please say hi? Okay, then. I will continue with that. If she'll be able to participate, I will invite her later. Thank you all for being here with us a whole almost 2 hours in this engaging conversation that we've had. And I would also love for you to be part of the official book launch that will be happening on the 19th of September 2025, which is next week, Friday, at the Trademark Suits in Aki. And the launch will be a celebration of breaking patterns and shifting for the better. As you see, we have to shift for the better. And you can join us through the link that will be shared in the chat box. And if you want to interact with a copy of the book before the launch, there is also a second link in the chat box for you all so that you can get access to the book. Also, consequently, there have been links shared, 4 links to the books that Victoria had mentioned already: How We Rise, We Took the Risk, Intentionality, and also Self-Sabotage. We'd love for you all to be part of the celebration of launching Self-Sabotage, and we cannot wait to see you on that day, book in hand and ready to step into the next chapter of courage and boldness. You can also follow our journey on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Zion Pal Publishes, where all official updates and communications are posted. Thank you so much, everyone, from the panelists to the audience to everyone that has engaged with us in this webinar. We cannot wait to continue interacting with you all. Will the book be available in the USA? Yes, we have the book on Amazon. I will also share a link or that, just shortly, give me a minute. You can get it on Amazon. You just order and get the Kindle copy. Yes, just a minute, I'm sharing that link. Rukia, I will share the link with you via email. I'll get you details. Yes, I'll share the link on Amazon, and everyone else that will get the link. The link is posted on our official socials, but you can get it through your networks. The authors who have participated in the book. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. And I would like to declare that our webinar is officially ended, but we still have a second session happening next week. If you'd still like to join us, the same link will be used for registering. Oh, yes, we have the link to the Amazon. It's in the group chat. You can get it before you leave the meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening or afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you.